Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Brightworks. Today we're going to be taking a look at another Beyond All Reason game. Today our match is going to be held on Bismuth Valley, version 2.2. You can see this map is a very high metal map. Lots of metal places, and all the lanes are clearly defined for all the players as well. So, I definitely think that this map is a good place to start if you're a new player, because all the lines are very clearly drawn for what lane you push and where you help. Now we're in the pre-match lobby here, just waiting for these players to put down their pieces. We do have one more player coming in. Currently looks like they either disconnected or are having trouble connecting. But aside from that, all the rest of our players are loaded in and ready to go. Now, if we take a quick look here, you can kind of see the matchups that we're going to be seeing. San Colonia is going to be against Most Kill. Calabu is going to be against Winter Gaming, who you might recognize from his popular channel. No Macro, No Micro, love that name. Going to be up against Ural, something like that. We'll see. Sigma GG, a lot of confidence in that name. We'll see how he plays. He's going to be up against Dynamic. We've got Templar starting in the back. Would love to see him move forward, as well as 32-inch Annihilator. Love that name as well. But anyway, Templar is going to be against 2 Crispy. Timberwolf 32 is going to be against FLRS. 32-inch Annihilator going to be against Slowpoke Steve. And finally, Crispy Bacon is going to be up against Dagon Bao. Looks like he finally made it into the match. Happy to see that. And it looks like this will be a fun one. Now, we can see No Macro, No Micro already planning out a little bit of strategy here, planning to put some artillery up on this lovely overlooking hill. I agree, that's a wonderful place to put artillery. If Winter Gaming can push up to this area and hold a little bit of a curvature on here, then we're going to be able to see artillery shelling down onto the unfortunate souls, trying to hold these metal spots below. Other important notes about this map, it does feature 2 different types of mexes, 2.8 and 1.8. So you can see the 1.8s are in tighter clusters, but the 2.8 are typically in their own spots, sort of on their own. But the metal itself does encourage you to follow your lane and stick to your fight. Now I'm expecting to see a lot of vehicles. Vehicles make a lot of sense in this map, just because of the amount of metal that each player gets on their own lane, let alone how much they can reclaim. Might be eating my words here though, as I see a lot of bot labs. A whole lot of bot labs. Yeah, bot labs all the way down for the Blues team here. Sorry, the Reds team. Yeah, it looks like everyone that has a lab queued up is going for bot labs. We should talk about energy. This map goes from 0 to 15 for energy, for wind power, that is. That's decent. Decent wind coverage. I would say that that's probably good enough to justify going for wind power, although I do see a lot of solar popping up. I believe it was lower earlier on, so some of these players might be a little distrustful of the wind. That's alright, that's understandable. Dynamic, the first bot lab I've spotted, the first vehicle lab that I've spotted. Far from the first bot lab. Virtually everyone else has gone for a bot lab. Calabu has also gone for vehicle lab as well. I think that's going to offer him a nice advantage here because this is a mostly flat piece of terrain up here at the top. And he's going to be contesting against bots from Winter Gaming. San Colonia hasn't quite made up his mind yet. Going to have a really late lab coming out here. Hopefully not to his detriment. But we'll see. Now, no macro, no micro. Taking my advice to heart. Hope you see my videos, no macro, no micro, and know that I'm proud of you. Sending out these early scout ticks to go check on the enemy, see what they're doing. Could be sent a little further than just this. Ural answering back with his own scouting ticks as well. Looks like everyone's just slowly starting to feel where the others are. Now, tick goes down here. Looks like there's some scouting ticks all over. I love to see this. I love to see the early game harassment spread out between all the different players. A lot easier to manage all of it if you don't have to do it alone. So really nice to see. Now, there are 2 ticks that have broken past here. They found a construction vehicle and they are going to go for it. Definitely a good move here. You can see that they can actually burn these things down pretty quickly. They do it to be micro properly, so they're not firing at full force here. Timberwolf leading his team forward, pushing the charge further than any of his others. We do have a little bit of a back and forth here where this thing wants to reclaim them. They want to shoot it, of course, but they are bringing it down pretty low. Now, the commander is pulling up right next to here. See it at the bottom there. Oh, and they do manage to get it. All right, that's a wonderful pick. That's going to mean that he has to build a whole nother construction vehicle. That's going to slow him down quite a bit. Slowpoke Steve, ironically, going to be slowed down. Now, Dynamic has opted to send a construction vehicle forward instead of his commander. Interesting, but not unheard of. We do see Winter Gaming pumping out a bunch of grunts, so he's going to have immediate control over this first area, sending both a constructor and his commander forwards. This is a great strategy on this map specifically, but also in general. If there's a lot of metal areas to reclaim, but also a front line that you need to hold, the best maneuver is to send your commander to hold the front line and just pick up all the metal spots behind that with your construction bots, because you don't need to rush to get these metal spots up, and your commander is relatively slow, so you really want to start that thing moving forward as fast as you can. Now, he's going to need the support of San Colonia because he is going to be up against 2 different players. Might even be up against 3 if Ural changes course here, although he definitely shouldn't. But that will be interesting to see. Winter Gaming has been picking up speed recently, been watching quite a few of his games and a lot of his content, and he's been rapidly learning the game, and I'm really glad to see it, as well as all the new players that are brought in because of that. Absolutely phenomenal to see all them. That's really how the meta shift in this game, where new strategies are figured out and people try new things. It's all because of the new players that come to town and try some interesting stuff. Sometimes it doesn't work, but a lot of the time it doesn't work. But when it does, you get something new and you get something special. Now, this lane down here is kind of interesting because this is a cliff area right along this ridge here, but you can actually walk up this cliff. It kind of doesn't look like it, but you can walk along this edge here and then down this edge over here. So this is actually a really interesting pathway, and if you're playing this bottom lane, you do need to be sure to contest this. Now, Dagenbao has sort of held the push for now. A light laser turret will do him just fine, but he is e-stalling, so it won't be able to attack at full power. Looks like he is building more energy to power everything, so that's good to see. His advanced solar, very efficient, but you do need to be careful, of course, that you don't spend all your energy here and don't have enough units. Take a sip of water here, because I think this might be a good long match. If you'd like to see more matches like this, don't forget to subscribe, of course. Very important, so you don't miss any of the future content whenever I'm covering it. And also, if you're looking for new tips, new tricks, or looking to pick up Beyond All Reason, it's a good place to start. Tutorial videos and whatnot. We do have some light aggression here from Timberwolf, using these very brilliantly, pushing along the edge of the lines here. Now, 3 of them do go down there. That's rather unfortunate. It's going to be a little bit of metal there given up. But I think they did a fair amount of damage, taking out this whole line of grunts that was defending here, and certainly opening up his lane a little bit more than it was before. Now, we do have a mixture of bots and vehicles here. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if he still has a bot lab. Indeed he does. He has a bot lab and a vehicle lab. That should be interesting to see. Wonder if he plans to stick around on that sort of composition, or whether one of these is going to disappear soon. We'll have to see. Now, Templar extremely far behind. I am not sure what's going on. Spot Lab is still producing, although it's just on a queue. I wonder if there was a disconnect here or something like that. No, units are being queued forward. I'm not sure. Make sure that you push up to where your team is holding, because this really is a weak point now where there's no units here, and Sigma GG is going to have to hold a much more difficult position now because he's in a wider area, split between 2 enemy teammates, enemy players. Now, he's been spared so far because Dynamic has largely been out of the fight here. But if Dynamic had been sending forces forward, he would have been in a lot of trouble. You can see FLRS is now covering for him down here. Skirmishing happening up here. Kalabu is using his commander to take down some of these light laser turrets, but at the cost of a huge chunk of damage. Oh, and it goes down with a snipe from one of these riot tanks. What a great shot from that. That's going to be a huge advantage to Winter Gaming if he can secure that wreck. He has the forces to do it, and his commander is sitting right there, so that's going to be wonderful if he could just move forward and capture all that. Indeed he does. You can see he goes for the reclaim right away. That's absolutely the right move, and that's 100% going to be a huge tech advantage for him as he has that now 2,000 extra metal in his bank, and yeah, what a great play. Losing a bunch of tanks for blue. Most skill, you saw that he lost quite a few of his army units because of that as well. Always a danger when you're playing with another team or another teammate rather. You know, you never know exactly what they're going to do. But the most important thing is this wreck here, which Winter Gaming has slurped up rather quickly. Wonderful. That's going to be a huge advantage. You can see he's immediately up to stalling on metal, and he starts up more power, starts up the economy. That's going to be a huge boost for him. I wouldn't be surprised if that trickles down, sort of becomes the leaping stone upon which the rest of this game goes more and more in his favor. No macro, no micro has set up a nice line here. Been forcing Ural to give up these forward mexes. Also took his commander down, but didn't manage to salvage the middle. Looks like he's aware of that. He is moving these forward and sort of slowly encroaching on that territory. He has the res bots here, but he doesn't know where everything is, so he's kind of hesitant to push into that. It also looks like some units snuck past over here, although they did just get cleaned up. They got three mexes, sorry, one over here as well. A couple of mexes for their worth. Definitely worth the effort of making those, sending them through. These are the 2 metal mechs, I believe. No, that one's a 1.8. This one's a 2.8. This one's a 1.8 as well. Now, these are all 2.8 mexes, so these are definitely worth contesting, and no macro, no micro is going to be a huge advantage now that he has full control over this area. That's an extra. I would call it another 6 metal, 5 to 5.8 or something, 5.4 metal. Yeah, going to be a huge advantage for him. Winter Gaming setting up a nice forward line of defense here. He's captured all of these forward 2.8 mexes, and indeed he set up a bot lab, or rather a vehicle lab, on this front line, sort of extended front line. Oh, and Blue's commander goes down as well. That's a ton of metal laying right there in the dirt. Let's take a look at exactly how much. 3,500 roughly metal. That's going to be a huge boon to Winter Gaming's economy. He'll be able to scale up to T2 as soon as he wants to. Now, he does have a few builders back here on micro. It looks like he's setting up anti-air defense, maybe a bit worried about a bombing run or something like that. I don't think there's any players we haven't seen from, though, and on this map specifically, everyone has a job to do, so unlikely to see bombing coming out, except, well, I guess they haven't seen Dynamic yet, so maybe worried about that player. Anyway, we do see a pretty static front line here. A lot of missile trucks here just chipping away at these maces, putting damage into them. Very, very static front line. We do see riot tanks, these pounders, really good against the T1 infantry spam, but they do get outranged by maces, rocketeers, all the skirmishing units. And we do see these maces trying to push in here, but those light missile trucks, once you amass them in enough numbers, they really can put their hurt on. And it's such a good distance, too, that they're really a dangerous weapon. Now, we do have a big infantry run by here, as well as a siege from some maces and rocketeers. What a great infantry composition he's built here. Very tanky up at the front, but also can deal out a lot of damage to those structures as well. So enrooted emplacements are going to fall to this pretty quickly. This beamer is putting in the work, though. It is slowly melting down these maces, but I have a feeling that it's going to be not long for this world here, as the rest of these pawns just run right past. Deadbolt straight to the economy here. You can see they're running right past. The beamer goes down. The turret does not finish. Now this group of blitzes are going to be able to retaliate. Looks like they're going to instead go for the cleanup on those units as they see that there's not much left to clean them up back here. But it's kind of too little too late from Dynamic. He really should have had those units out on the front line a lot sooner. He does have a bunch of Mausers just idling here, and those could have been absolutely devastating to this T1 army. If you're new here, Mausers are by far one of my favorite units. Absolutely a treat to play with because they just do a tremendous amount of damage. You can see Winter Gaming getting a huge amount of metal reclaim up here on top. So definitely a blunder from that team. And in fact, Blue has already resigned. That's a bit of a shame to see. Just such an early quit there, but I also can't blame him because really he's lost everything. Now, if we take a look down here, it looks like mostly this win is going to be thanks in large part to the push here from Winter Gaming. I'm really liking this forward base that he's set up. This is something that you'll see some of the other top tier players do as well, and why not copy those strats? They obviously work well, right? Now we do see no macro, no micro also pushed up really far. Just taking his time reclaiming all this. He's going to get that juicy bot lab. That's 444 metal. That's satisfying. Whole lot of metal. Excuse me. Take a sip of water here. Definitely going to be a nice juicy injection of metal right into his economy. We do see also a huge line of these mobile artillery. Very useful. Good for shelling away at a long distance. Sort of the Mauser equivalent for Cortex. Big skirmish of maces and whatnot over here, but this agitator is actually putting in a lot of AoE damage, melting those things down. Definitely good to see. Gonna outrange everything over here, start chipping away at all that static defense, but I don't think they quite have taken a look north to see the approaching storm headed towards them right now. This is a fair army, though. We do have some Mausers here, which will be enough to take care of those T1, and quite a few Blitz tanks, which should mop up these remaining tanks here if they're microed properly. They're currently, well, it's a bit of a contentious point here. A lot of these blitzes are going down. You know, I stand corrected. The blitz's main benefit is that it's quick and agile, so you can surround these tanks a lot easier. If you're not using them like that, then you're not really getting your full money's worth out of those blitzes, and for that, there's not really any point. We do have another player disconnecting here. Which color was that? Sort of the light blue, the teal blue. That must have been this player here, whose base has been completely ravaged. Looks like there's a bit of bad taste in the chat right now. Can't say I'm surprised after a loss as sore as that. And we do have a sprinter here, sort of running around trying to get a little bit of damage done. Not quite sure what it should target. The best choice would have probably been these energy converters, because they would have set off and damaged everything around here in this area. But who can blame them for that level of micro? And we do see these artillery getting used, and you can see they are just as dangerous as the Mauser. You just don't see them quite as commonly because there's some other really good stuff that you can make out of Cortex's T2 bot lab, so sometimes these get overshadowed. More blitzes coming out. It's really not the right unit at this point. We either needed tanks or it's time to go T2. You have the T2 bot lab, you might as well start using it. That being said, only 26 economy, sort of hard to justify making T2 units when you can only make about, I'd say maybe one or two of them every minute. You can see sort of the general arc of the Reds team is caving in on the Blues. The Blues down 3 players now, which is just oppressive. No way for them to field all the APM without some, truly remarkable micro from those players, but maybe that shot right there shows it all. There's just not enough actions per minute to go around. These Starlight cannons are very powerful. You can see they melt through these artillery with one shot, but it's a matter of getting the vision for them too, because of course they can attack much further away than they can actually see. So you need to accompany them with radar bots or spy bots or just a swarm of T1 spam units that you can pump out one way or another. You need to get some vision for those guys. Pretty static front line here still. Looks like mostly just porcupine defenses, but it is rather interesting that neither player took advantage of this ledge here. I wonder if neither of them realized that you could walk up this side of this hill right here. It kind of looks like you can't because of the way that it fades into the ground here. It just doesn't look like a ramp, but you can actually walk up this hill and shell these units. And in fact, that would be a really devastating runaround here, would be to just send a few of these units up this top area. And indeed, you could just send them right into the back line here. Do we have a unit? No, it looks like this one's just trying to get right next to the ledge. Where's it going to go up there? Oh, I guess he might have accidentally discovered that he can drive up on this little segment right here. Oh, he does have another unit up here. I think these might have just been clicked up here by a drag of the mouse. accidentally swept them away. Winter Gaming up to T2 bot lab now, so you can see he's got those fiends out, which are just devastating. Really hard to deal with those if you don't have a matching tech level in the economy to support units to deal with those. That's one complaint I see a lot, is that the fiends are overpowered. You know, for their power level, for how early you get them and how cheap they are, relatively speaking, they are pretty overpowered. But that's not to say that they don't have their place or that they are unbeatable. There's certainly ways to deal with them. You just have to be aware of it. One unit that I found recently that actually works tremendously well is the Centurion. This is actually a pretty decent option against those fiends. It just doesn't seem like it because it's a T1 bot, but it is actually a medium infantry bot, so it can hold up a fair amount against these fiends. You just have to make sure that you don't clump them and you have a nice spread on them so that they can target the fiends down properly. That being said, you know, if your economy is already ravaged from raids and whatnot, you're barely going to be able to pump out pawns, let alone medium infantry bots, so understandable that it's frustrating to have to deal with that. We do see the carnage closing in here. So many of these Januses. What a devastating army right now. We do have hounds coming out, but every single time these Janus fire, you're seeing 2 or 3 units go down. Yeah, those are so frustrating to deal with because they just, as soon as they fire, you know that you're about to lose some units, some firepower. Looks like more and more players are crumbling. Light Blue keeps taking everything. Too Crispy keeps taking everyone's bases as they leave, but he's also just taking them as they're getting destroyed. Yeah, and I think all of this basically traces back to the medal that Winter Gaming was able to claim at the very beginning of this game. Definitely a boon to have 4,000 medal fall right into your lap. You can see the gravestones for the commanders right here. What an excellent play by him and his teammate as well, St. Colonia, having those tanks in the right position. Just making sure that those commanders go down and securing that medal has definitely been the advantage that their team needed to win this game. You can watch the end of this here. It looks like there's a few fat boys. All units should now just be routed towards the enemy. You need a big arrow that just says enemies here. But the fiends have broken through. You can see them tearing apart this base, spraying their jets of flame out and about. Timberwolf's commander here in trouble. Although it wasn't in any... It's been in trouble for a while now. Wasn't in any less trouble earlier. Commander goes down. Wow, that was bright. Probably shouldn't have been so zoomed in on that. Sorry about that. We do have a fiend. It's Silver Star Fiend here, actually. Wow, look at that. Wrecking havoc over here. Slowpoke Steve has his base sent up in flames. He zooms out now and looks at it and says, "Oh, we've lost this. We've lost the north." I find myself doing that quite often. I'll be really focused on my Sim City. I'll be really focused on building, making sure my units are spread out. So focused on my line and all my units, and then I zoom out on the map and I realize, oh, we've lost the northern half of this map entirely. This game has already been over for the last 10 minutes. Definitely a frustrating feeling, but it's nice when it happens on your end, and doubly nice when you're the player that won your lane and you get to push and be the reason for this win. Now we get to watch as this army folds in upon Crispy Bacon, making his valiant last stand. See these turrets. Well, they were dissecting this Sheldon, pulling it apart. It's got 10 health left, but now they're more focused on healing up to... Oh, there they go. Slurp it up and temporarily get a big boost of metal, but don't think Crispy Bacon is going to have enough to deal with the onslaught of Horde coming towards him now. Sometimes it's fun to try and hold out as long as you can, though. I understand. Unfortunately, it's just never very long. At least when I play. There are some players that can solo versus 2-3 other players pretty easily. Huge APM limits on those guys. Have to imagine they've been playing a long time. We do see the final commander here for the blue team. Taking some heavy hits. Making his final charge, and that is going to be all. What a wonderful game. What an epic game. What a tremendous clash up in the north here. Giving a ton of metal to that northern part of this team and boosting them up. You can see from the graphs here, Winter Gaming taking a huge lead as he slurps up all that metal. In fact, let's look for metal received. Or rather, maybe it's metal sent? Metal stored. Well, I'm willing to bet that it was probably either this little boost right here, any of these little hills, or it was this big hill right here. And eventually that allowed for the eastern team, or the western team rather, to take over, take advantage of that, and lead themselves to victory. Anyway, this has been Beyond All Reason. Sure hope you enjoyed. I sure did. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.